of attacks on the KRG, and that's been a very clear violation of the Iraq's sovereignty and territorial integrity. We don't think that there is any reason for these sort of attacks. Even if there are issues need to be solved through dialogue and not by resorting to violence or taking actions and firing missiles. We understand that there are some different changes in the region. There are some unrests inside Iran, and none of that should be exported. We don't think that diverting attention from internal matters to somewhere outside will help solve any of the issues. So we call on Iran and all of our neighbors to respect the sovereignty of the country and to, instead of creating more tension, to look at how we can improve our relations and increase our cooperation in different levels.
In the previous panel, we had the American ambassador to Iraq and the British ambassador to Iraq here. What are those two countries or other partners doing to help in this situation, to create deterrence?
Well, all of our friends have been very clear in issuing statements condemning the attacks, and also they've been trying to help with the federal government also to have a united stand on defending the sovereignty of the country, and also to encourage all parties involved to engage in dialogue to solve problems rather than looking at other means.
You've been Prime Minister now 3 years in Kurdistan, and I wonder how you differentiate between the short-term problems and the long-term problems. The long-term problems, they're big. In this conference, we've talked about climate change, we've talked about the pressures of economic diversification, but those immediate problems are more about economic inequality, of job creation, of running a government and paying salaries. So how do you balance those short-term versus long-term priorities?
Well, let me say that this has been a very challenging job. It's not easy. As you rightly mentioned, there are short-term and long-term challenges that we have to face. Some of them are beyond our reach, and something like climate change that we all have to cooperate and work. I'll come back to that. But the most immediate needs that we have is basically to provide services to our people, to do whatever we can to ease tension and also, all the problems that are happening inside the region, but also to look at how we can improve our situation. Like I mentioned earlier, that we have a very ambitious agenda, and we want to do more for our people. I think it's very important that what we're doing to provide more services to people by digitalization, and so there are a number of things that we've done. These are the things that we have already started, and we have addressed some of the immediate challenges. But for the long term, there is much more. Now, I must give you maybe an answer that you may not expect, but quite frankly, I think the biggest immediate and long challenge for us is how people are looking at the issues, is the perception. So I would say that if Kurdistan has, if I give you a priority or categorizing them, I would say that the biggest threat to the KRG is the fear of betrayal, deception, misperception, failure to separate facts from fallacies. It's very important that you have your people understanding the issues. When, unfortunately, there is a confusion, when they don't know or don't distinguish right from wrong, that's when you really face or feel the pressure even more. If Kurdistan is united, all of the people of Kurdistan are united on a united agenda, if they defend their rights, if they try to work together and eliminate external negative influences, I would say. And if all the issues are clear to people, if people who are doing right are rewarded and those who are doing wrong are punished, I think we would be in a much better place, because at the end is the people's judgment that either encourages you or discourages you, in which direction you should go. So that's very important in my view, that we have to be closer to our people, to have a closer dialogue with our people, to engage them. And it shouldn't be government above all. It shouldn't be an interaction of the government and people together to look at what issues are at stake and what the needs of people are, and then work together to find a way out of it. And on the other, let's say, long-term challenges like climate change, like I said, I mean, this is a very important challenge, maybe not enough talked about. Before we were talking about these challenges in the future, but now we live it. Yep. It's no longer in far distance. It's here. Now. So how do we deal with this? Not having enough rain, and sometimes you see the migration of people from place to place. These are causing some other challenges, like security challenges, cultural challenges, political challenges. And we've already seen a lot of these people are migrating from place to place. And then the competition over scarce resources increases, which may lead to security challenges. And I don't think it will only remain here. This is a global issue. If this issue is not addressed properly here, then many of these people who are migrating from one city to another, they may move from one country to another. And that becomes an international challenge. It becomes an international problem. So I suggest that all of those who care about this climate change must come together and look at how we can help each other. For instance, in Iraq, we need to better manage our water resources. How do we do this? We need funds, we need support, we need help. But in the long run, we are preventing a much bigger problem in the future. So these are some of the challenges that definitely requires a global cooperation, at least a regional cooperation in our case. And of course, as you know, in any government, there are always going to be new challenges down the road. These are the ones that we see. But I do believe that also, at the federal level and at the regional level, the Kurdistan regional government, we also need to increase our cooperation to solve our problems. And for that, we are assembling a team to go to Baghdad to negotiate on all of the outstanding issues between Baghdad and Erbil. I believe that providing services, increasing economic development will definitely lead to better security and more political stability. So I hope, at least we have covered some of those issues that are important.
I would love a follow-up on how you feel Kurdistan's voice is heard in COP in Egypt right now, but maybe we should go to a question more in terms of what you were describing of the relation between citizens and state, and yes. And that having correct information, right? On Tuesday we had a workshop and we had members from your Department of Finance talking to us about some of the reforms that you're doing in providing information on procurement, on the budget, on creating digital systems to be transparent, so people know what the government has, what it spends, and that bills are paid on time and correctly. I was really impressed with the people that are working in your office and who are advising the office, and I realize it's an enormous challenge, but maybe you could talk through some of those reforms that you've been pushing now for several years, but how they're going and what's next.
As you know, reform is not something that you reach a point and you say that we are done. It's an ongoing process. no matter how much you do, you still need to do more. So on one level, we have tried to diversify our economy as part of our reform so that we shouldn't just rely on one source of revenues. And in that regard, we have made significant progress in investing in agriculture, which, by the way, just recently we have made the first ever shipment of agricultural products outside of Kurdistan. We've seen that many of our farmers are now investing more in agriculture, so that is helping increasing the non-oil revenues for us, which helps fund and support the rest of the reforms that we intend to do. On the other side, we have tried to do to cut the government's expenditures by basically doing the services online, and most of the procurements are online, so everybody sees what we are buying and for how much we're buying, and that really helps reduce corruption. It helps the government to be more in control. It helps better manage the expenses of the government. And also by digitalizing services, we are providing more opportunities for people to engage in a much faster way, in a much transparent way, and it requires a lot of investment and huge effort. We've started when we began this cabinet, we haven't seen all of the results yet. By the end of 2025, we are hoping to have a government which is paperless. And so this is going to be a significant improvement in the way that we govern. And also recently we have built a state-of-the-art data center where we have to, from now on, make our decisions based on the data available and not just make individual calculations or judgments. This is all going to help. Of course, this is how we build the infrastructure for a better government in the future. We may not have all the results but I'm sure that in a very short time you will see the positive, constructive impact of the reforms that we've started.
And how do you deal with those who don't like that process?
Well, as government, we have to be determined on doing what we believe is the best for people. At the end, the government is for the people, and it should be by the people. So we will do whatever we believe is in the interest of people, and I expect that our people are going to support us in stopping anyone who is creating obstacles and problems for us to better serve people.
And when they see the results of more transparency?
Of course, they will see it.
Let's talk about threats to the Kurdistan region, but also to Iraq. We talked a little bit about the recent attacks directed from Iran, but what about other kinds of threats, whether it's violent extremism or other groups, or what is sort of on your list when you go to bed at night and think these are the things that worry me?
Well, I worry about a lot of things. But yes, extremism, terrorism is a problem. We still have ISIS as a main problem. We still have, let's say, other extremist ideologies as a problem. We still have groups that are basically outlaws and do not respond or are not responsible or act responsibly. Of course, these are all challenges that we have to deal with day by day. There are solutions that have been suggested. For instance, to deal with ISIS, there are some immediate solutions, which is the cooperation of intel services and the military to go after any potential targets of terrorists. But at the same time, we have to increase our cooperation, especially between the federal government and the Kurdistan region, to look at the areas where these terrorists are maneuvering, especially in the disputed territories. And for that, we have agreed with Baghdad to have some joint forces to go and fill the gap in those areas, to deny terrorists access to those areas where they recruit and where they operate, and also pose a threat to both civilians and government institutions. But I would go beyond that. Fighting terrorism and extremism is not only about military and intel operations. It requires governments' help on increasing and, let's say, providing better services to people. By experience, we've seen that extremism grows where there is poverty, where there is injustice, where there is a lack of services. So it's the government's responsibility to provide better services to people, to improve economic conditions, which basically leads to more political stability and better security. And of course, there are other challenges on the border. As you know, there are ongoing problems between our neighbors and some of their oppositions and some of the groups, unfortunately, who do not respect the rule of law and the KRG or the Iraqi government. That requires a better cooperation to secure our borders, to also provide more security to those regions, and also to give more assurances to the neighboring countries, as we have said in the beginning, that we never intend and we never will be a source of threat to the security of any of our neighbors.
I want to go back to the themes you just mentioned. I mean, the coordination with Baghdad on mutual threats, on sort of having a united front to those external sources, but also the kind of internal dynamic. On Tuesday, as part of our workshop, we had a delegation of young Iraqis from Baghdad and some from here in the Kurdistan region. And they talked about their perceptions of job creation, particularly in the energy sector, both in traditional oil and gas, but also in renewable energy. And it was interesting because, you know, I think they were a little bit pessimistic on women's inclusion, but also very interested in the idea of the energy transition and what might happen here, good things that could happen here. So I wonder if you could just briefly talk a little bit about how your government and the federal government might find more areas of cooperation on either energy themes or job creation themes, particularly as it relates to young people.
On the energy, of course, and we have the Constitution. And I know that earlier today there was a panel that talked about it. We have to implement the Constitution as it is. And responsibilities are very clear. Our rights are very clear. What we can do and what we are responsible, it's all stipulated in the Constitution. In general, I believe that Iraq and Kurdistan, for sure, shouldn't only rely on the oil and gas for a prosperous economy and a brighter future. That's why in the KRG we have started to look at how we can diversify our economy by investing in other sectors like agriculture, industry, tourism, how to improve our education, our health centers. So that basically helps. But currently with the Iraqi government, of course, I mean, we've all seen the actions, I would say illegal actions that the federal government took against the KRG. Now, you know, we expect this new government to halt all of these actions, and we have to work together to write a new hydrocarbon law, and that hydrocarbon law will be the basis for our cooperation. Iraq has much more to offer than to fight over. We don't need to fight over these resources because there is plenty. It's just about the management, how we are going to find a mechanism to better manage our resources, whether it's human resources or natural resources. But I am optimistic, and I have no reason to doubt that this new government will not come forward in helping writing a very, good hydrocarbon law for the country. So I think that this is going to help in the energy sector, but we need to do much more than that. You're talking about creating jobs and youth. Here in the KRG, in my own office, I've designated a team that is working with incubators and startups and entrepreneurs, how to provide opportunities to them and help them. And there are some good organizations like 51 Lab, and there are many in the KRG. Some very talented young people have created their own jobs. And now we have a plan also to help these startups. People with good ideas will get the government help to create their own businesses and to basically create more jobs for the people. My idea is to help private sector ease the pressure from the government, to ease the load of the pressure from the government. People shouldn't only be looking at the government for employment. Of course, government will always need talented, good people to work for it. But that shouldn't be the only source of employment. And by encouraging private sectors, this is going to help. It will be a win-win situation, creating more jobs. It would be less costly for the government, it would be more revenues for the government, and it would be more opportunities for people. We are doing this. And just a few days ago,
your innovation center, right?
I announced the Kurdistan Innovation Institute. This is to attract scientists, talented people, whether inside or out, to come and present their ideas. The government is going to help, and this is the cooperation that is very much needed to bring private sector and public sector closer together, which at the end I think we can do a much better job and help our own people to be the masters of their own destiny, to create their own businesses, and to improve their own living standards.
A lot of my research is on economic diversification in the GCC states, and one thing that we often think about in that context is this window of time. Oil prices are high right now, gas prices are very high, but we know it won't be forever. And so the imperative for these innovation centers, for creating new sectors, is obviously very important. But I wonder if you might speak a little bit to this window for gas, which I think is very important for Kurdistan. And, you know, what are the options? You need a new kind of federal law, but pipelines, perhaps export to Europe. Europe is looking very favorably towards the region now.
Well, it looks like energy and gas has become a major issue for Europe and the world. Last time I spoke about this, there was a lot of tension and a lot of accusations, and unfortunately a lot of actions taken against us. So I must be very clear. Yes, there are resources here that we need to utilize, and the aim is to help our people, you know, before anybody else. So how do we do this? Obviously we need gas for electricity, we need gas for our own needs, for our local consumption. So by increasing gas production, we have to look at basically fulfilling the needs of Kurdistan. And then look at the markets. Of course, the rest of Iraq is also a market. And how we can increase that cooperation, I hope that within the next hydrocarbon law, we can look at these areas of cooperation, how we can best utilize the resources that are available in different parts of the country. And we still will have access, excess gas, and that's when we are looking to export outside. Of course, more investment, sooner investment means sooner productions and more availability of gas. But that requires certainty. It requires guarantees. So the first step is for the federal government and for the international community to help, let's say, clear the way and lift all these sanctions and pressures so that investors can come willingly invest in this resource, which eventually is going to help people of Kurdistan, of Iraq, and also Europe. So this is it. It's just as simple as that.
It has to be now.
It has to be now so that we don't waste a lot of time.
I agree. Let's see, what else should we talk about? I think you talked a little bit about kind of new relations with the Sudani government, maybe a little bit more on regional politics and relations in Syria, different kind of communities in Syria. What is kind of the best path forward there?
Quite frankly, I don't know if there are any guarantees for, let's say if we are talking about northeastern part, the Kurdistan part of Syria. There are no guarantees about the future. Even the coalition forces or the friends of the Kurds that are operating now, I haven't seen any sort of political agreement about their status in the future. What will happen? I don't see a very positive move from the government in Damascus to accept and admit, to incorporate that part of the country by preserving the rights and giving the rights, and find a way that is workable for both sides. And then, of course, we also see that there is a lot of tension with Turkey. And last point, which I think is the worst part, is the intervention and influencing the decisions of the administration in that area by some external factors. So it's really up to the people in the region to make up their mind and to be the masters of their own destiny and to be independent in making decisions which are really in their best interest. Now there is some divisions. They have to come together. They have to basically cut off all these negative influences that are coming from outside and look at how they can closely cooperate and work together to secure a better future for them. We can only help. We cannot impose, we cannot dictate, but if they're willing and accepting for our mediations and support, of course, and we are always ready, as we have done it in the past, we will be doing it again to bring ideas together, to help them, and I think that's the only way that they can maintain the kind of status of freedom that they enjoy today.
I want to ask you, and congratulations on your new job as head of the PDK party, and what does that mean for, you know, balancing relations with other parties and with the role that you have as Prime Minister?
Well, as the Prime Minister, I try to act as a Prime Minister, not as a representative of a political party. So my position in my political party is irrelevant. I am the Prime Minister, and that's my job today. Thank you. But I must say that my party has been very supportive, regardless of who is where. But my party's policy is very clear. And my party's leadership and members have always been supportive and given me the support I need to do what is best for the interest of the entire people and not just my party.
Excellent. I don't know if you'll take any audience questions, but
it's up to you.
If you like, but I want to ask one, kind of go back to global politics for a moment before we do that. Anything that you talk about in Washington these days is about this sort of great power competition. It's what we've talked about in this conference. How does that come to the Kurdistan region and the Karachi specifically? The United States is accused in the Gulf states of, you know, making partners choose sides between the United States and China. Do you feel that pressure? Is that part of sort of the politics of the regional government or of the federal government? How is that playing out in the Iraqi context?
You mean us choosing between friends of Iraq?
Yeah.
Well, you know, when you're calling it friends, then you cannot really make a distinction. Friends are friends. So we are keeping equal distances with our friends. We would love to see all of our friends come and help us and support us. But we always remember those friends who came to our aid when we really needed them. Of course, I mean, they always we hold them very dear to our hearts, and we have closer relations. But we are not going to get in choosing between friends or sides. We cannot make that much difference anyway. And our situation really requires to have peace and to have best relations with anyone who is extending their hands of friendship to us. So anybody who wants to be our friend is welcome.
And to develop the needs of the citizens, yeah. All right, well, if the Prime Minister agrees, we might take a couple of questions from the audience. We have a few minutes.
Please.
So many. The lady here had a question, and then let's take one from the gentleman here in the back.
ئێوارە باش جەنابی سەرۆک وەزیران سێ ڕۆژە لێرە باسی ئاشتی و ئاسایش دەکەین تەبعاً زۆر باسی سیاسەتمان کرد پرسی ئافرەت بە بۆچوونی من نە ئاشتی نە ئاسایش بەبێ حزورێکی چالاکی ئافرەت لە میدڵ ئیست کە یەکێکە لە فاکتەرەکانی دواکەوتن لەو ناوە دەستەبەر نابی جا پرسیارەکەی من ئەو پرسیارە دەمێ وەکو فێمینیستێک پرسیارێک لە جەنابت بکەم تەبعاً جێگای دەستخۆشیە هەستمان کردیە وجودی ئافرەت لە کابینەکەی بەڕێستان چ وەکو وەکیل وەزیر چ وەکو بەرپرسی دەستەکان چ وەکو وەزیر لە هەرێمی کوردستان گەشەیەکی باشی بەخۆی وەدیتیە ئێمە کۆمەڵێک لە ئافرەتانی ناو حیزبە سیاسیەکانی کوردستان تقریباً لە دەورەی پێشووەوە خەریکی ئەوە بووین ئەو 30% کۆتایی کە بۆ پەرلەمانی کوردستان هەیە هەمان 30% بە قانونێک شۆڕ بکەینەوە لە ناو مؤسساتی حکومیش بیتەسپێنین بۆ ئەوەی ڕێژەکە زیاد بکەین جا طبعاً ئەگەر 30% زیاتر باشتریش جا پرسیارەکەی من لە جەنابدەوەیە ئێوە پێتان وایە ئەمە ضرورە و پێویستە لە کابینەکانی داهاتوو جەنابتان دەست پێش خەر بن لە ئێستاوە ئەوە بەڕێزان لە پەرلەمانی کوردستان لێرەن بۆی ئەم پرۆژەیە وەکو قانون ئیقرار بکرێ و دوایی ئێوە تەبەنی بکەنەوە مەش دەبێتە دەستکەوتێکی زۆر گەورە بۆ بەڕێستان سوپاسەوە پرسیاری منە هیوادارم
بە کوردی وەڵامەکەت دەمەوە
بە کەیفی خۆت
So women's economic inclusion and government inclusion, great question.
Okay, I'll answer in Kurdish.
Okay. I'll be ready.
پیش هەموو من زۆر سپاسی جەنابەت دەکەم پێگومان جەنابەت یەکێکی لە سەرکردە ئافرەتەکان کە لێرە لەگەڵ چەندین سەرکردەی تری ئافرەت حزورتان هەیە ئەمە خۆی نیشاندەری ئەوەیە کە ڕێزی ئافرەت لای ئێمە چەندە و پێگەیان پارێزراوە و هیوادارم نمونەشتان زۆرتر بێت کۆمەڵگەی ئێمە تەنیا 30% ئافرەت نییە تەنیا 15% ئافرەت نییە بەپێی ڕێژەی کۆمەڵگە پێویستە ئافرەت بەشدار بێ لە هەموو کارەکان لە حکوومەت بێ لە دەستهەڵات بێ لە ئیشکار بێ لە هەموو شوێنەکان پێویستە ئافرەت بەشدار بەڵام کێشەکە ئەوەیە پێشتر کە ڕێگە بە ئافرەت نەدراوە ئێمە کۆتامان دابەزاند بۆ ئەوەی هیچ نەبێ ئەو جیاوازیە یان پیاو سالاریەی کە بەردەوام بووە کە هەبووە بەردەوام نەبێت بەو شێوەیە ئافرەت بتوانێت پێگەی خۆ و جێگەی خۆی بمێنێتەوە و بێتە پێشەوە بەڵام ئەمە تاکەی کۆتا بۆ تا ئەو کاتە باشە تاکو یەکسانی جەندەری لە کۆمەڵگەیەک بگاتە ئاستی پێگەیشتن ئەو کاتە پێویستی بە کۆتا ناکە ئەو وەختە لەوانەیە ئافرەت نەک 30% لەوانەیە 70% دەستهەڵات و لە هەموو شوێنەکانیش ئافرەت بێ من لەگەڵ ئەوەم کە توانایی ئینسان پێگەکەی دیار بکە پۆزیشنەکەی دیار بکە اینجا ئەگەر ئافرەتی زۆر زۆر بەتوانەمان هەبێ بە ئافرەت زیاتر لە پیا و دەستهەڵات شیار بێ
We'll take a gentleman here on the right side, and I don't. How much time will you give us?
I don't know. It's up to you.
Okay,
I'm your guest.
We'll be here a long time then. Oh, I meant over there, but that's okay. You go ahead. that's okay.
Okay, my name is Vladimir Wilgberg for Kurdistan 24. My question is, what's the guarantee for implementing the agreement signed by the political parties to form a new government? What would be the KRG stance if the deal is not honored again by Baghdad like in the past? And also another question I have about the environment. We see still a lot of littering, but there are not many policies to prevent it. So like Kurdistan, nature is destroyed by the littering. Do you have any plans to, for instance, implement policies so that water, for instance, is not spilled, that like there's punishments for littering in Kurdistan? Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Of course, and we have an agreement with this government. I don't think it would be wise to now be suspicious of the intention of the government. So let's give it time. Let's not be doubtful. Let's see how things go, and then maybe we can answer your question if we don't see any improvement. But for now, I don't think it's wise to say anything. We have to really be confident that this relationship will improve and that the federal government will comply and honor the agreement that they have with us. On the issue of environment, there are some areas in Kurdistan that have been preserved. And of course, yes, we are doing everything we possibly can to support the environment. But this is not going to happen only by having police or special groups looking at how to maintain the environment or to keep the environment clean. It has to start from education. It has to start from the elementary schools. And people need to look at this as a culture of respecting the environment and keeping it clean. So if we can do it, I hope that our children can.
Good answer. We'll take this one here. Yep, excellent. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister Yerevan Said from University of Kurdistan. I do care about the issue of inequality, especially economic equality. How do you address the issue of economic inequality in the Kurdistan region? If you live in Golden Triangle, you have water, you have electricity 24 hours. But if you drive outside just, 3 minutes away from there, people are suffering from lack of water. And also, I pay only 11 cents per kilowatt of electricity in Washington, D.C. area. Here, I pay 31 cents. Economically, it doesn't make any sense. Do you have any program, any policy to address these issues? Thank you.
Of quality of what? Just
economic inequality, service inequality. Yes.
Inequality.
Yes.
Well, it would be very difficult to say that everybody will be equal. People are not equal in their talent. People are not equal in their efforts. So there will always going to be diversity. You have to give equal opportunities. There is no such a thing as equal, let's say, economy. But there must be equal opportunities, and then those who really do better will definitely get better results. So it's the government's responsibility to provide equal opportunities. That's what I wanted to say.
Yeah. Let's take the lady here in the back, and then maybe one more. Yeah?
Okay.
Okay, yes, I forgot about you. I'm sorry. Keep going. The lady in the white shirt. Keep going. There you are.
Troublemaker. Amrin Zaman, I'll monitor. Russia is a very big investor in the energy sector in this country and also in Iraqi Kurdistan. Given the situation in Ukraine, all the sanctions that have been imposed on Russia, are you concerned going forward that this large Russian presence can become something of a problem for you? Is that raised to you by your Western American partners in your private conversations with them? Thank you.
Thank you, Amberin. You always have to ask difficult questions. But, to be honest, no. Because we have complied with the sanction regimes, and we don't think that there has been any violation of these sanctions in Kurdistan by the Russian investments. So we are doing everything according to what everybody else is doing. But we don't see any problem.
All right, last one. Gentleman here was very patient, down towards the front, third row from the front. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks to the organizers that I have been here for the last 3 days. And my name is Muhammad Ali Taha, former member of parliament. I'm missing something in terms of building peace and security, which is the media effect. Majority of the political top decision makers in Iraq and Kurdistan, they own their own media, which is fine. But one of the problems is that these media channels they carry out the agenda of their owners, and these agendas sometimes clash. And that's the problem when it comes to the escalation of the conflict. And that's the problem when it comes to the role that media can play to help security and to help peace happen. What are we doing to prevent that negative media effect?
Thank you for this question. I don't think we should do anything. Let me tell you why. I think there is too many politicians and too many diverse ideas and personalities and political parties. So everyone representing a certain view, it means that you're basically covering up a range of different views in the society. So why limit them? Let them just go and say whatever they want.
One more? It says we can have one more, so we'll let this lady in the middle who's waving.
Thank you. سعادة دولة رئيس الوزراء، اسمح لي من أن أتكلم بالعربية.
تفضلي.
المحترم مسرور البارزاني، ما مدى متابعتكم واهتمامكم بتنفيذ اتفاقية سنجار؟ وما هي الضمانات التي تعطونها للإيزيديين بأن العودة ستكون قريبة وآمنة؟ أليس من المخجل على الحكومتين العراقية والكردستانية بأن تعيش أقلية دينية مسالمة غير تبشيرية لمدة 8 سنوات في مخيمات غير صالحة للعيش البشري؟
Shall I answer you in English or in Kurdish? My Arabic is not very good. In English? Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you for this question. We have this agreement with the federal government, and it's not the fault of the KRG that the agreement wasn't implemented. It was mainly the federal government that did not implement the agreement. There were some factors that challenged the rule of the federal government or the authority of the federal government. There are some elements present in Sinjar that are not allowing this agreement to be implemented on the ground. So we do have an agreement with this new government that Sinjar agreement must be implemented. So we have to wait, like I answered in the previous question. We must give it the chance. We must wait and see if this government is also coming and will comply and will honor the agreement that they have. On the second part of your question, I think it's shame on the federal government, not on the KRG. And let me tell you why. These people have fled from areas under the control of the federal government and came and sought shelter in the KRG. So it's the KRG that provided them where everywhere else denied them security and having a decent life. Instead of praising the KRG, I'm very surprised that you say that you put them both on the same category. People have fled from other parts of the country. They've come to the KRG, and the KRG is the one that provided them shelter, provided them security, provided them a decent life. I know that living in camps is not easy. And again, it was the rule of the federal government to pay for the camps from the sovereign expenditures. But unfortunately, they did not. And despite the fact that the federal government cut the budget from the KRG hosted about 2 million IDPs and refugees from other parts of Iraq and also from Syria. So we basically shared whatever we had, and we opened our doors, and we embraced people in need, and we will continue for as long as it takes until they go back to their homes when they have decent life, security, shelter, and services. And we will do everything we can with the federal government to provide such conditions for them to return. But until then, they are welcome to stay with us.
Thank you. Well, please let me thank you, Prime Minister, for your graciousness in supporting this conference, for your openness to dialogue and questions from journalists and our audience. It is really important and it means a lot, and thank you for taking the time.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for participating. I think we have a little bit of a break now, but we've taken an hour, which is what we promised. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.